What is happening out there, Roto Scouts football fans? How you guys doing, gang? Feel like we were just doing this, Trav. Travis is saying, back like I never left. Yep, it is that kind of turnaround. We just got done with the NBA show. Had to get a big NBA update in. If you didn't catch it, John Morant not playing tonight. The other one that I was waiting on, it was supposed to be a game time decision for I believe a 7:30 start from my New York Knicks. Maybe they're playing at 8 o'clock. No, that's a 7:30 start. I haven't seen any news on Josh Hart, so just be aware. He was supposed to be a game time decision. I haven't seen the Knicks lineup. I haven't seen a confirmation on whether he's playing or not. So that's kind of what I was going to say is, how I know he's not going to play is because we started the show and now I'll have to change it. But keep an eye out for that if you're playing the NBA slate. We're here to talk Showdown football. We're going to look through player stats. We're going to talk about each individual option as usual. We'll take a look at some Ace Mind Sim results. We'll build some lineups by hand. Yeah, I got that, Power. I appreciate you dropping it in, but yeah, I noted it in the channel. I updated the projections. Scottie Pippen to me looks like a extreme value now. He was already looking okay, and definitely shoots toward the top of the board. Smart picked up a couple minutes. I just kind of spread some minutes around because that's a team that plays like everybody, like 26, 24, 28 minutes. So kind of easy to just spread things down, but I do think that that particularly Scottie Pippen looked interesting. Trav, I was getting some Larry Nance. He was coming up a little bit. Some him, some Roddy, because they're like mid-priced, and they both got minutes the last time in this situation, so I expect it's going to be pretty similar with both Okongwu and Hunter out. So, yeah, both those guys, and basically every cheap piece for Atlanta was coming up. No issues with it. Reshower was still, he was just dominant in my, let's see. In my top 150 on FanDuel in the last sim that I ran, Reshower came up 59%. He was the second most highly owned player behind Jalen Johnson on that same team, who was at 63. And then there was an appreciable drop-off to a lot of other guys. So it was really those two guys way up at the top. But I suspect that if I reran it, Scottie Pippen would land somewhat similarly. So three big interesting pieces of value, just kind of top guys. But yeah, out of the guys you asked about, both those, Nance in particular, FanDuel, I only got him 9% of the time across the top 150, but he's in a number of the top lineups just because of the value that he was creating at the min price. He's got power forward eligibility over there, so hopefully that answers that. But we're here again to talk football. It is an ugly football game, 36.5 point total. I believe that's the lowest total of the entire week for week 8. Pretty much every game was like mid-40s. By the way, apologies. It was our bye week for the football show this week. I tried to get it. I had the full dashboard put together. I had all the notes. I did everything. And I just couldn't find a spot to land it on Saturday because it was the busy basketball day, multi-sport thing going on. I didn't want to drop it into Saturday night with the World Series game going on. It just got lost in the shuffle. So it turned out to be a bye week, week 8 for the football main slate show. But I had it all ready. But yeah, this one, I believe at 36.5 points, the ugliest total that we had to work with all week long. Pittsburgh favored by 6.5 points too. Just a bad game environment here. Don't love the upside for my Giants all that much. They're going up against a defense that's limited opponents to 3.6 yards per rush attempt, which is one of the league leading marks in football. According to the other tab from the same guy, it is still 3.6. It probably changed the ranking based on the weekend. So technically now that ranks third. They're 7.1 yards per pass attempt, ranked 17th. You can throw the ball a little bit on these guys. 23rd ranked 6.07% sack rate. But what really worries me for Daniel Jones is the pretty solid secondary here. 3.88% interception rate, ranked second overall in football. That is definitely a capable secondary. They've picked off 9 passes already, and that could easily go up to 10, 11, or even 12 tonight against Danny Dimes. Still no Knicks lineup. That's going to be one that, you guys are going to have to guess, or not guess, but I mean, hopefully he handled it correctly coming into lock and coming into this game because I don't see it. I expect not seeing it means he's going to go. Tough guy that he is. but he might play a fewer minutes than might normally be expected. But since we haven't seen it, I got to assume that he's in there. So yeah, Giants just running into too good of a defense. The Steelers don't really generate a ton of pressure, which maybe helps Daniel Jones, but I think it just gives him a little bit of time to make the wrong decision or throw a bad pass. So I really don't like the spot. 18.7% pressure rate, though. Again, not a crazy high pressure rate. They've been only okay at getting to the quarterback. On the other side, Russ Wilson's going to be dealing with an extreme pressure rate, 24.3% pressure rate. I misspoke. It's not an extreme pressure rate. It's a very good one, 24.3, but the sack rate at 6.07, at 13.42% is tops in football. 31 sacks on the season coming into the week. That's with everybody else playing over the weekend, I believe. So still the top sack rate in football. That's basically the only thing the Giants do well on defense, though. So you're going to see Russ under a lot of pressure, but Russ still mobile enough to get away from it. Still a very, very capable veteran quarterback. We talked about him the last time he was on a slate about how last year maybe kind of underrated after the disastrous year before that in Denver. He did throw 26, I want to say, touchdown passes. It was just limited yardage. It was around 3,000 yards, but threw 26 touchdown passes last season. So, I mean, he was capable and is certainly still capable enough to beat a Giants defense that's allowing 7.3 yards per pass attempt. 5.4 yards per rush attempt. Those rank 32nd and 20th. Or I said it the wrong way around. The 5.4 is 32nd. That's dead last in football. So potential benefit, obviously, to Najee, to Jalen Warren. And then the 7.3 yards per pass attempt is 20th. So potential bump to Russ and his core of pass catchers. In Russ's debut, by the way, 2 touchdown passes, 264 yards, 16 of 29. Very much a Russ living up to expectations kind of a performance. Starting with the visiting Giants, we do have Danny Dimes up there, 9,400, 14,000 across sites. Look, it's a showdown slate, so the quarterback's bad as Danny Dimes might be, he's going to be playable, right? You're going to want to kind of throw him in there. But he is a low-end quarterback. He projects like a low-end quarterback. He does not throw many touchdown passes. 34 pass attempts a game. He's completed 63% of them, but only for 206 yards overall. 6 yards per pass attempt, 6.9 intended air yards per pass attempt, 3.4 air yards per pass attempt. So this is not a team that's capable of throwing the ball down the field all that aggressively, which is a shame because Malik Nabers is a phenomenal receiver. He just needs a better quarterback. I was saying it the other day, going into last week, and I'll say it again. Malik Nabers, as good as he's looked, would look better with, I think I said 26 last time. It's legitimately 31 of the other quarterbacks in this league. This guy is the worst quarterback in football, in my opinion. He's running the ball a little bit, 7 times a game, but for 3.7 yards per rush attempt. Usually rushing quarterbacks, you see a pretty beefy yards per attempt. Not with Daniel Jones. 2.6 yards before, 1.0 after. No touchdowns on the ground this season. He's thrown 6. He's thrown 4 interceptions. He's just a big bag of awful. Nabers garnering nearly 40% of the team's air yards on his 12 targets a game. He was targeted 8 times last week. It's basically him and Wandale in the passing attack. 8 targets, 9 targets for Nabers and Wandale last week. 12 target average, 9.6 target average. Nabers missed some time in there, but has been a target monster in basically every game that he's played. What I don't have together is the collection of the game log, so I got to do a little clicking here. Last time out, Nabers caught just half the passes, but again, a lot of that not his fault. If the ball's nowhere near you, you can only do so much. 4 catches, 41 yards, no touchdown. Hasn't been in the end zone since week 3, but he did miss weeks 5 and 6, and he did have a big week 4. He caught 12 of 15 passes for 115 yards. He just happened not to score. Wandale, the last time out, caught 6 of those 9 passes, but it amounted to 23 yards. That's tough to do. 5 catches for 50 on 11 targets the week before with no Nabers. 6 catches for 9 targets for 36 and a touchdown the week before that. You've also got Darius Slayton a little further down the depth chart here, 5,800. A little bit of believable upside for Slayton as well, but he didn't do much with Nabers back. He saw 1 target. Dude was out there. He played 55 snaps. That was down from 65 and 64 the 2 weeks before that with no Neighbors. Different game environment against Philly. But 55 snaps is not nothing, and he ran 37 routes, and they targeted him one time. He caught it for 11 yards. In week 5 against Seattle, he had a big game. 122 yards on 8 catches and a touchdown. 6 catches for 57 yards on his 11 targets in week 6 against Cincinnati with no Neighbors. But again, just kind of fell off the face of the earth. So the way that Daniel Jones is going to play this game, or plays most games, is that he's locked into his top decision. Think of it like playing Madden, right? Where you've got the hot route that's like illustrated on the play selection, at least back in the day. And people just kind of lock into that guy, and then you just go through your progressions, and that's how most quarterbacks play. But Jones watches Neighbors most of the way. Whoever's the number one on that play, whoever's the target on that play, his first read, and it takes him a really long time to make read number 2. And by the time he's even considering going to a third read, it's over. He's either thrown a bad pass, gotten sacked, thrown an interception. So I mean, there's just not a lot outside of the top 2 targets in most of these games for the Giants. So on a showdown, yeah, you can play Slayton, but odds are most of your targeting is going right there. You've got a split backfield between Devin Singletary, who's not any good, and Tyrone Tracy, a converted college wide receiver who might be good. Singletary missed weeks 5 and 6 and then came back. He played 12 snaps, carried the ball 5 times for 18 yards, caught 1 of 1 targets for 3 yards. Tracy in that game played 37 snaps, but he only carried the ball 6 times for 23 yards. Caught 3 of 3 for 9 yards. So again, he is a converted receiver. Does seem like he's kind of won over the coaching staff and taken this job away from Devin Singletary, which is good. But maybe it was just a case of Singletary still being a little bit banged up last week, and he might come back into more of an even split. But either way, with the position itself just totaling 11 carries last week, it's such a low volume running back position anyway. Tracy's got a touchdown on the board, 4.4 yards per rush attempt, significantly better than the 3.9 per attempt we've gotten out of Devin Singletary on 12.2 carries a game. Singletary's punched the ball in twice. Neither guy has a receiving touchdown. Both guys targeted 2 times a game. As far as the rest of this ugly Giants team, you could probably mix in the defense a little bit for some scoring upside, but they don't project well with an expectation of Pittsburgh doing some scoring. So Giants defense, pick up some sacks, maybe some counting stats. Unlikely to win you anything from the captain spot, but they're getting a little bit of ownership there. Getting a decent amount of ownership in the flex spot. They're cheap enough, $34,900 across sites. Greg Joseph, the kicker, is definitely going to be involved, but again, another kind of low-end kicker, and even he doesn't really see a lot of opportunities because his team's just bad at bringing the ball down into even field goal range a lot of the time. But he's on the board on a showdown slate, and he is one of the better pieces from the Giants, actually. Theo and Danny Bellinger, another ugly position for this team. Chris Manhertz also in the mix. But Theo and Bellinger are the more targeted guys. Theo in his rookie campaign last week out went untargeted over 32 routes run on 49 snaps. The week before he ran 29 routes. 3 targets, caught all 3 of them for 30 yards. Biggest game came against Seattle in week 5. That was again with Neighbors out. Caught 5 balls for 48 yards on 5 targets. But slipped back to no targets last week. 1 target in week 4 with Neighbors active. 3, 0, 4 going back over time. Very, very low volume. Bellinger caught 1 of 1 for 11 yards. That was his first target in 4 games. He has 3 targets all season. So again, tight ends, very limited on the Giants. I do know that it's National Tight End Weekend, or was Tight End Day yesterday, and they went off yesterday. Maybe you can mine some Darnell Washington on the other side. That would be my go-to guy as far as like the second string tight end who gets, the potential touchdown. Darnell Washington is a lot more interesting. Theo Johnson would be the pick from the Giants because he's been more targeted, but it's a very limited target position. But he plays way more snaps than Bellinger does, and then he gets way more looks in the passing game than Manhertz, and plays more snaps. Down the board, Bryce Ford-Wheaton is nothing, sub 1 projection. Jalen Hyatt, ignore that. I'm going to change it right now for you on DraftKings. That there's a weird with the PPR site. The projected catches don't come down when I adjust. Jalen Hyatt is basically untargeted. He runs some sprints. He is a terrible receiver that Daniel Jones just can't hit because Daniel Jones can't throw the deep ball. Showdown projections. All right. I'm just going to take 2 points away from him. It's just he's not going to get those 2 catches today. So it's I'll call it a 0.52. So Jalen Hyatt also a below 1 point proposition here. Eric Gray, just the third string running back. A little bit of talent, but not going to see the ball manner as I talked about. Way better options on the Pittsburgh side as far as talent outside of Malik Neighbors in that conversation. You've got some legitimate players. Again, Russ completed through 2 touchdown passes, completed 55% of 29 pass attempts. Not the greatest volume in the world, but it was a solid 9.1 per pass attempt, 8.2 intended air yards per attempt, 5.3 completed air yards per attempt. Connect with George Pickens a little bit. Pickens, a monster as far as air yards, as far as depth of target, as far as air yard share goes. Accidentally closed the Steelers tab. I almost called them the Pirates because I'm still partially in baseball mode. Let's go Yankees, by the way. So Pickens caught the touchdown last week. He had caught 5 of 9 targets for 111 yards. That was his second time over 100 yards. He did have a 100-yard game with Fields in week 4 against Indy. Caught 7 passes that week for 113. But that was his first touchdown and one of only 2 games over even 85 yards. Pickens is the easy combo with Russ. You've got the dual-headed backfield here. You've got a very capable tight end in Patty Freiermuth, who is going to be the go-to guy. He's drawing 4.1 targets a game. He's got 2 touchdowns on the board. Limited as far as the ADOT goes, just a 5.3-yard average depth of target. He's not the biggest downfield option, but he does get looks in the red zone. He does come away with some potential scoring events, and he's got good hands, catching 3.4 of 4.1 targets per game. Just kind of mixed options as far as the depth wide receivers with Calvin Austin and Van Jefferson go. Each one's got a touchdown. They both operate on an 11-ish yard ADOT, 16.6% of the air yards going Austin's way on a little bit more targeting. 3 targets a game, 4 targets last week. Van Jefferson, 2.3 targets a game, 3 targets last week, but also picking up 12.5% of the air yards. Everybody benefits a little bit from playing with Russ. I think there's no arguing that Russ is going to deliver a better ball on these targets than they were getting from Justin Fields. In game 1, Jefferson did get in the end zone. Game 1 with Russ, he was the other touchdown pass, but he only caught 2 of 3 for 15 yards. He's peaked so far this season at 3 catches for 26 yards in week 5, but more scoring obviously with that touchdown on the board in week 7. And then Austin caught just 1 of 4 targets for 36 yards. But he does have a little bit of breakaway, big play type ability. So you got to think that they're going to look to put the ball in his hands a little bit. By and large, the Steelers, a rush-focused team. 53% rush is the second biggest focus on the rush. What the hell am I trying to say? Second most aggressive rush script. 46.8% pass. So I do expect them, especially with the terrible nature of the Giants' defense against the run, I kind of expect them to lean on Najee, lean on Jalen Warren a little bit here. I think both of those guys are in play. Giants just flat out cannot stop the run. Najee's been good over the last few weeks. Week 6, 14 carries for 106 yards and a touchdown, added 2 catches for 16. Week 7, 21 carries for 102 yards against the other New York team. Had a touchdown on the ground. No catches on 1 target. And then Warren, more the clear backup this year, but did carry the ball 12 times against the Jets for 44 yards. Caught 2 of 3 for 15 yards. So definitely involved, kind of more touchdown dependent. That was actually a 50-50 snap share, though, last week. It was more 57-40 on the season, favoring Najee. Najee's been in the end zone twice on the ground. He's gaining 4.1 yards per rush attempt. Warren limited at 3.3 yards per attempt, but again, explosive enough upside to beat this Giants team and fix that situation in a hurry. As far as the air goes, 6.8 yards per target for Najee, 4.9 yards per target for Jalen Warren. Neither guy getting into the end zone. Both guys just catch the ball at or behind the line of scrimmage and try and make something happen. So they are positive contributors when they're throwing the ball, but there's not a ton of upside there. Again, I do like Freiermuth, but I do think that Darnell Washington could be a little bit sneaky here. He's got a touchdown on the board. If you're looking for that down depth chart touchdown play for a showdown slate that's going to be way lower owned, differentiation piece, in Russ's debut last week, let me pull up Freiermuth at the same time. In Russ's debut, Freiermuth played 47 snaps, ran 22 routes, caught 2 of 3 targets for 51 yards. Good output there. It's got to be a two 20-plus yard plays, obviously. So there's big playability in Pat Freiermuth. But you also had 4 targets go in the direction of Darnell Washington. He played 36 snaps. He only ran 8 routes, but he was targeted on half the routes that he ran. So when he's out there mostly doing blocking, but when they call his number, they are looking to, consider him as one of the options in that scheme. He's only been targeted in the red zone once all season. He had a touchdown that game, and he only was targeted once that game, so I'm going to assume that he converted that red zone touchdown. Definitely a little bit, especially given the involvement of upside there. And as far as a red zone target goes, 6'7", 264 pounds. It's a big dude. Pat Freiermuth, though, 6'5", 258 pounds. So if they get into that 2 tight end package down toward the goal line, I think that one of those guys might be getting that target. I like the upside for Darnell as just a pure piece of differentiation. Steelers defense, big time on the board. They project out really well, one of the more aggressive defenses of the week. Again, they have a limited pressure rate, limited sacks, but a lot of picks, second in the league in picks, and they're very, very good at limiting the run, which is just going to bottle up this terrible Giants offense and force them to throw. They're going to be playing from behind most likely, with Pittsburgh favored by 6.5. So the Steelers on the board for a couple of turnovers, on the board for a turnover and a score, to be quite honest. Down the board, nothing really looks appealing in the sub-1 territory. I don't even think you're really dealing with much as far as dart throws down there. Jump over to some lineup building, see what you guys are talking about. Just a handful of folks here hanging out. I know we're odd show time today and competing against a bunch of big shows that are established and popular and everything. So I expect you guys to be here. I appreciate you guys who are here. Power says Josh Hart is starting. All right, good. That's how we had it. It's good for business. Any other changes, by the way? Power, shout them out if they come down anything critical. Looks like as expected for the Rockets. Looks as expected for the Bulls. Spurs. Knicks. Steven Adams is available for Houston. I don't remember if I had Adams in. I don't have Steven Adams in. I don't anticipate a big impact there. I think I would probably just give the minutes that I have for Jock Landale to Steven Adams, right? I hadn't really thought about it. So I don't see an impact on that. That's the only change. For those of you who are here. All right, let's build some DK lineups. The good news is nobody's expensive. Malik Neighbors, the highest priced player on this showdown slate at $10,000. Let's just drop him into. Whoops, can't drop his price into that spot though. So let's drop Malik in there and just see what we can do. I'll reluctantly take the Danny Dimes share. Jalen Warren historically has seen a little bit more targeting in the passing game. So I kind of like that as like the sneaky way to correlate those with the lower end of the 2 running backs who does have a little bit of just, inherent running back upside today. I would not think it's totally crazy to even do this with Pittsburgh's defense against a Malik Danny Dimes. That leaves me at 34, in which case I could just easily go to Darnell and have a super low owned lineup here. Wow, actually that's not as low owned as I thought it would be. All right. 18 dupes is too many. I thought that was going to be a lot lower owned. I really did. Joker, please go lie down, buddy. Let's see what happens if we go Giants D and do the same thing. With the Giants defense in there, we've this $2,000 price difference, so we do a lot more. But let's say we went that way, 12. Is Darnell owned? Yeah, 9% ownership. That's not, all right. I guess RG's giving a little bit of credit to tight end there. So maybe Darnell's a little bit less sneaky than I thought, but that would still be the direction I would turn for that. But that's all right. So that got aggressive. It's just this, I think, that's killing the ownership right now. Malik in the captain spot most particularly. There's got to be a good path to a lower owned version of this, though. I mean, you could probably just go like... Even this is going to be 10. Still pretty highly duped. Probably if you do this, yeah, that would cut it down. Especially if I did this. Leaves a lot of money on the table, and I do think that your key to getting different today is going to be to leave a pretty aggressive chunk of money on the table. Anything that uses up most of the salary is going to be super common. I don't think this is completely crazy. It's obviously a better stack up for Russ in the captain spot, which you can easily do here. Right? You just reverse these two guys. So that's not I mean, now you've got even more salary to work with. But given that it's just all it's doing is going to the 3 alternate targets for Russ and not using his top 2 guys, which I'm totally fine with. You're just dealing with, much more limited targeting, so you need the scoring events to happen through those 3 guys. But even if he throws most of the targets to Freiermuth and to Pickens, there's a little bit of scoring upside for all 3. It's not ideal to have all 3 of those guys in a lineup, don't get me wrong, but that is the path to differentiation. Let's say we take that back to Jalen, and then actually, wait. I want to see a Pickens. It's difficult to put anything from the goddamn Giants in here. Because if you're not going just Danny Dimes and Malik Neighbors, then it's like, do I want Wan'Dale on his own? Is kind of a play. Tyrone Tracy and Devin Singletary, I really don't want to just smash into that Pittsburgh front. So I'll take Wan'Dale and just take targeting upside. He's going to be owned. It's not sneaky, but gives me a little something to work with. Since I'm going away from the Giants in that one, we'll go back to this chalky Pittsburgh defense yet again. And now I'm at 54. So again, my goal would be to get aggressively under, take like $2,400 Theo and just hope for the touchdown. And leaving the $3,000 on the table at least makes me more different. If I spend that 54 on, I already used the Steelers defense. Chris Boswell. That doubles my dupes. Gives you more scoring potential, sure. But you're chopping that chopping that down further. Theo would absolutely have to score you a touchdown or at least catch 3 or 4 passes. Does feel a little bit like a double defense kind of a week. Probably still take Russ. 14. Oof. So I would want Najee captain if I was going double defense that way, just for the grind of it. The most likely running back to just grind out, a good 70 yards and maybe a touchdown. I would want Russ just because the higher upside between the 2 quarterbacks, but if you wanted to go the other way for a little bit of an ownership discount, that's probably also okay. Oops. That might be a better path, honestly, bad as it is, because then you could take that and you could put a Giants correlated receiver in there. I mean, you could even go to neighbors if you want to, but that's not going to be great. Yeah, 18 dupes. Wandale's more reasonable, but still we're double digits. I really don't like that. Slayton, it would be... the hell is he? There he is. It's like... There you go. That would be the approach. Grindy game on the Steelers side, which I can totally get behind as far as an approach, especially with that terrible Giants front. Just take the Najee chalk off the top. Jones, I don't trust at all, but taking him with a tertiary receiving option brings our ownership way down. Both defenses, again, Giants going to have to do their part as far as racking up some sacks. But I think if the pressure is extreme, if the Giants are getting a lot of sacks, it wreaks havoc on the passing game, which feeds the narrative for the Najee captain spot. Steelers defense will take care of itself. Not worried about that. And then I think that whole narrative feeds the Boswell play. So it kind of makes some sense to me, this lineup. And it's one of the lower dupes we've seen so far. Obviously, if you do anything different up here, we can make these dupes extremely different. Right? That's straightforward enough, but it's not necessarily playing off the game script all that well. But let's say we did like that and then went like Russ and Pickens. Let's say you think it's going to be pass heavy and we're just going to fade neighbors in this one. Ooh, 23. That's a challenge. Ooh, I can't get Theo. Damn. You could do this, but that's not going to be very likely. If you're building a ton of lineups and your goal is I want to try and win this and limit the dupes as much as I possibly can, this could be an okay build, but know that you're getting like one potential target for Danny Bellinger. So if I don't go Jalen Warren there, you go Patty Fryermuth. How about the double tight end? That isn't crazy, but again, I do think that that's a better Russ captain lineup, which would change the ownership paradigm here. Goes up to 14 if you move Russ to the captain, and actually you can't afford it because it's moves the salary up, but you can put anybody in place of Wandale and get there. Like if I just built the same lineup with Slayton, it does get down to 7. Not completely terrible. This is interesting. I can see a world where both those guys score a touchdown. I don't know that there's a world where they both score a touchdown and George Pickens has a huge day, unless we're talking about like a big target 100 yards plus kind of an outlay with no touchdown, and the touchdowns just go here and here. I could see it, but I don't love it with that specific version of the construction. $15, a little aggressive for my thinking here. Bozzy's probably going to be the same thing. 11-ish with the double tight end and Boz. It's not terrible. It would be the same scenario if I know I could lower the ownership by putting Calvin Austin or Van Jefferson in that spot, but it would be a little bit artificial because, again, I think it stretches the idea that both those guys would score in this configuration as we think through our game script here. So I don't love that, but like if I put Van Jefferson, this is going to go single digits, right? So, but I don't want to cheat it. Singletary you can't get, but Tyrone Tracy you can. That's an interesting wrinkle, by the way. That $4,000 price difference in favor of the guy who potentially might be the backup running back now. Not great by DraftKings. So Tyrone Tracy at 44, he's going to be popular because of that price, and 16.25 dupes is not ideal. But let's get Patty Fryermuth out of there and see what we could do about that. I got neighbors already. Washington, I want to give Russ something. Ooh, I'm 100 shy of Najee there. Again, I don't really like the idea of Tyrone Tracy just running headlong into that tough Steelers front. And because of that defense, too, I do think that feeds the idea that Singletary maybe evens back out with him this week as far as snaps and everything go. Just giving the ball to the veteran seems like something the Giants coaching staff might lean into a little bit. But Tracy does have a little bit of capability catching those ugly dump out passes from Danny Jones because he's got nowhere else to go because he's wasted too much time and pressure's bearing down on him. 27. You could get really wacky with this build and make it heavy Giants, and that's still 20 dupes. I hate that lineup. Russ and Najee, fine. Everything Giants, ugh. I mean, technically it's their two best players, but I don't like this lineup, and I hate the fact that it's duped 20 times. Power saying on another unrelated note, I got a ban on Stephon Diggs having an ACL. Go Yanks! I got a ban that Otani labrum tear, but they're going to take him out of the World Series. I expect no homers for the rest of the series for him on an off-season surgery. Yeah, that didn't look great. Just reported Otani came on the field with a sling, yet he's confirmed batting first. It's just one of those things for show, you know. He wants to get up there with his arm in a sling and then take it off and throw it behind him. Mash one into the right field seats. Let me do a couple quick FanDuel, and I'll pull up the Ace Mind Sims here in the last 5 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever. Just a couple quick, easy FanDuels. Najee makes a lot of sense to me as a captain on FanDuel. Let's just go with the chalky out of the gate and see what happens. Well, this isn't correct. Is it? No. Why is it saying $18? Why does this thing get all fucked up on me? There we go. So Najee MVP, Neighbors, Russ. Dimes. And this is just an intentionally kind of chalky build. 69 dupes. Hey now. Just to see how you can chop that down. 53, we're taking a little bit out of it already. Get the Steelers defense out of there, and there's a big change. You go like Van Jefferson or somebody like that for Russ to throw to. Now we're down to 22. It's FanDuel, so you're only going to get so low. I would move Russ into the MVP spot there since I'm giving him Van to work with, and then in which case you can replace Wando with Pickens, and now you got 45, so that ain't going to work. Oh, damn. I didn't realize Van Jefferson was that expensive. Let's go Calvin Austin just to save us some money. You could get Singletary. He's only 6,000 on FanDuel. That's not bad, and then that bounces my last spot back up to 11. And you could take like Jalen Warren, get a little bit there, but again, 25 dupes. Darnell's 85 and Frime was 55? Am I missing something? That's what I did. Ignore all this. This is in a different order. That's why those prices didn't make any sense. I forgot I resorted by the teams over here. Screw it. I can't get FanDuel lineups builds going these last two shows because I keep screwing up the copy paste into this goddamn column. I do want to build one good one. Everything I just did on FanDuel was probably wrong because those prices were wrong. I'm glad I noticed at least. That Freiermuth, Darnell Washington difference. There we go. Darnell 65 and Freiermuth 8,000. That makes a hell of a lot more sense. Actually, let's go. Take me back to the Najee captain. Give me Danny and Malik. And then give me Darnell. Now I got 95. I can get the Steelers defense in there, but actually that isn't bad. 12 dupes. No Russ. So you're just looking for a low-end passing game, which, again, the Giants' defense could force a little bit given their ability to get to the QB. You're looking for the touchdown to go through Darnell and everything else to go through Najee Harris, and that kind of works for me. Danny Dimes and Malik Neighbors just do their thing on targeting and catching the ball up and down the field, but he throws away all the critical passes to the Steelers and they do their thing. No issues with it. And 12 dupes is, reasonable enough FanDuel-wise. Obviously, we're looking for less, but that's not completely terrible. Can't get Warren. Could get Slayton, but meh. Austin and Jefferson. All right, 75 makes a lot more sense, too. That's another one that threw me. They were like 13 or whatever in that other sort. I knew that did make sense. So you throw Jefferson in there, you leave 500 on the table, and you're cut below 10 dupes. That's not bad for FanDuel. That could play. Giving Russ 2 targets that he threw touchdowns to last week. Daniel Jones is doing whatever with Wandale. You don't take Malik Neighbors, and you're sub 10. That isn't bad. I would play that lineup on FanDuel. Obviously, if you move it out to this version, which is the higher end, technically, score probability version, you take your dupes up basically double. If you go like that, it's triple. Right? So the path to success, as far as the dupes went, was putting the receiver in. You can do the same with George Pickens, less so with Van Jefferson. But if you move George into that spot and then had 17. So that's like comparable with having Danny Dimes in that spot. The path of least resistance to it is having Wandale there. So I kind of like that. Let me pull up Ace Mine for the people hanging out. Just a couple of you here still. We're crashing into lock momentarily. Get more on the ball as far as the shows go, especially with these days where it's not going to be 4 sports to handle. Today just got away from me a little bit, but apologies, guys. Appreciate those of you who are here. So this is our DK sim. Top 150. Good luck to you too, Power. Danny Jones in a whole hell of a lot of the top 150. Russ Wilson, captain, came up in 57% of the top 150. That's how ugly this game is. It's just straight lining Russ through the captain spot. But you do see in our very, very top lineups here, we've got some Jalen, we've got a Malik share, we've got a couple Danny Dimes. So it's not exclusively Russ as far as actually reaching the top of the board, the very best performing lineups. It's just through, the majority of the top 150 lineups had a lot of Russ in the captain spot. But most of them had both quarterbacks in with Jones in the flex spot. I would suspect that, it's what, 96% Russ? So as I was going to say, I would suspect that every lineup that doesn't have Russ in the captain, by and large, they have Russ in the flex role. Jones got into 11% of the captain spot. So basically, same 96% ownership for him. So again, the quarterbacks are just so key as the most likely high scorers that you're just going to mostly want both of them, regardless of what configuration you go with. And then you could mix things up a little bit. That top lineup there isn't completely terrible because it goes Russ with Pickens as the prime there. You get Freiermuth, Jones with Theo. So you get a little bit of a connection there. And then Jalen going to the second banana at running back is an interesting approach. Giants defense working its way into that second one is kind of interesting. Giants D came up 24% of the time. I'm going to tell you right now, the Steelers defense is in here. Don't see it necessarily off the top. There they are. 14%. That's because they're chalky, I think. So the Giants defense outpacing the Steelers defense by 10 percentage points across our top 150 is interesting. Again, they do have scoring potential with their sack ability. But Russ, easily good enough to beat them. Frymouth, 39% flex, 4% captain, not bad. Neighbors, 37% flex, 6% captain. Jalen Warren, 17 with 8%, and the captain is interesting. That's a cheap path to realistic captain production. If you go Jalen Warren there, again, Giants terrible at stopping the run. That's not going to change just because he's the nominal second string running back. Najee, where are you? Van Jefferson? Jefferson in 15%. He actually snuck into a captain share. So as we scroll down, again, it is very, very heavy, Russ, but you are seeing some variance there. There's a Boswell captain. That's an interesting. There's the Van Jefferson captain. Jefferson, Neighbors, Wilson, Jones, Najee, Slayton. So he accesses a lot as far as what you can pay up for. That Boswell one, basically three-man with Pickens and Wilson, and then Jones, Wandale, and Slayton. Tyrone Tracy, 15% all flex. Where in the hell is Najee? So I've been secretly looking for this whole time. 15% owned in the flex, just 2% in the captain. I suspect that's Najee bouncing off of his popularity again. No issues with pressing the gas pedal down a little bit. He's going to be one of the more likely high scorers on this slate. So if you wanted to get to more in the flex role, no problem. More in the captain role as well, no problem. But it does look like we're coming up under the field on both as far as this sim goes. Pickens, 34 and 8, right around where we would expect. Significant enough exposure in both spots. Going to be highly owned. Him and Neighbors, no secret. Getting to any of the other wide receivers are differentiation points on both of these teams. Again, Wandale, 22% with 1% in the captain. Boswell, 17 and 1. There's Joseph. 9% of Greg Joseph. It's about what you would expect. Singletary, 4% flex, 1% captain as the low end play. I don't necessarily disagree with that. But again, I do think maybe there's a lane through which this is the game where Singletary reclaims some more of his touches, some more of his snaps, just because of the nature of that Steelers defense. Scroll down to the bottom here and give you guys some lower end ideas. Dennis made it. What's up, buddy? Good to see you. A couple minutes before the end of the show here. We're just about to jump to what you might want to see. FanDuel results. Look at all that Russ Wilson. 100% Russ Wilson exposure. Most of it appears to be in the captain spot on FanDuel, but you do get some good performers with Jones and Neighbors making their way up to the top of the MVP. Excuse me, that was against the 20, not the 150. I'm guessing it's still high 90s. 95. So again, you do get some good mix in there, or some mix in there anyway. Some Pickens. It's really the four obvious guys going through that MVP spot on FanDuel right now, though. There's a Najee. So call it the 4 or 5 most obvious guys are coming up as the most playable captains. Again, the best path to differentiation on FanDuel, I think, is going to be to leave salary on the table. These look very chalky to me. Wilson, Jones, Pickens, Wandale, and Van Jefferson. At least you get Jefferson, Calvin Austin in there differentiating a little bit. That top one is going to be duped through the nose, I'm sure. This is a lot of cases kind of the best we can do. Again, 10-12 dupes FanDuel slates, sometimes the best you can hope for, and this is one of those slates. Calvin Austin, 21%. Van Jefferson, 17%. So again, those two guys specifically, pretty key points of differentiation. Slayton, another one, 26% of him. Wandale at 25%. Frymouth at 34%. Theo's going to be a differentiator. Yeah, 17% against low ownership. This is very much a case where this entire game is just going to be, and it's silly to say because they all are, but it's even more so going to be touchdown dependent. There are limited touches in a 36-point game, and with these two teams specifically, there are super limited potential touches. Tracy on FanDuel, 13% exposure. Russ, again, 95. Danny Jones, 85. Washington, just 4%. That's interesting. Again, a little bit of touchdown upside for him. Only 4% exposure. If you wanted to goose that a little bit to get yourself assuredly ahead of the field, I wouldn't mind it. Singletary, that's what I was looking for. 7% Singletary. A little bit of Boswell I saw in there. There's some Greg Joseph. Joseph 11%. Bos is probably around the same. It's an ugly FanDuel slate. It really is. These slates where it's just so concentrated through like these 5 guys are going to be the most obvious guys. There's only so much you can do with FanDuel. Dennis making Patty F a captain. I like that. I have no issues with it. Let's see. I don't know if he snuck into any of these. He's definitely in there a ton in the flex roll. Don't know if we got him in our top 150 at the MVP spot. You said captain, so I don't know if you mean you're playing on DK today. I know you're usually a FanDuel guy. But again, that is a differentiated play with a realistic guy who's going to draw 4 to 6 targets easy and has the potential to catch 2 touchdowns. He came up 29% across the top 500 here, which to me in and of itself justifies the idea of maybe getting him in an MVP spot to differentiate a lineup. Let's go real quick, see if we get any. Come on, Pat. Come on, Pat. Getting down toward the end here. Come on, Pat. Where are you? There he is. We got one. I had faith. I knew he was going to be in there. It's going down the top 500, but Patty Freiermuth, Russ Wilson, Danny Jones, New York Giants, and Darius Slayton. That will be a low-owned lineup. Top 500 doesn't mean unplayable. Keep in mind, this is against a field of 52,000 lineups that was run 50,000 times. So, I mean, the fact that it's a top 500, not completely crazy. Patty Freiermuth catches his touchdowns. You're off and running with that, and then you very much need that Darius Slayton touchdown and some Giant sacks. But, hey, we got there justifiably in our top 500 just to round it out. That was it. It was that one. And it was really close to the bottom. I'm so glad he came up. That made me happy at the end of the show. Fun little race. All right. Let me punch out of here, guys. See if anything changed in basketball for the 8:30 and beyond games on FanDuel. Really appreciate all you guys. Let's go Yankees. Let's go low-end New York Giants. Let's go Knicks. Crazy day today. Don't think the Rangers are playing. Hockey was projected today. If you haven't been to Roto Scouts in a minute, hockey projections are live. Doing those every single day. Getting all the line combinations correct. Line combinations, power play combinations. Goes up during the day. I don't update it as we crash into lock, so any changes are on you, but it's up there. Access to that, plus these football projections, plus baseball while it lasts, plus basketball. Under $1 a day, access to all of them. Not one at a time. All of them. Check it out. acemind.io. Let me at least say their names correctly. That's what we're looking at here. It's our sim and optimization partners. Guys do great work over there. Think they're still running their promo code, but if not, promo code Roto Scouts all in caps definitely still gets you 20% off your first month. Their promo code was tip-off. I think it was 25%. So try that one first. But check out acemind.io. With that in mind, guys, good luck out there tonight on your showdown lineups, in your basketball lineups, in your baseball lineups, your hockey lineups. I will see you tomorrow. Good luck out there. Somebody go win something. See you tomorrow.